Hello, everyone. It's Erin again. Welcome to our first virtual meeting for Sustainable Science, Contextualizing Chemistry through Safer Hands-on Labs. So, in this video, um, I would like to briefly go over again the course goals and today's video goals. We are going to engage in a quick investigative phenomenon. We'll talk a little bit about the criteria and the benefits of sustainable science. We'll head back to our investigative phenomena and evaluate it through the lens of green chemistry. And finally, we'll really briefly look ahead to what's coming in the last bit of class. I am going to share this interactive Google slide link with you in the email that's coming with this video, but you will be hopping into this slide deck whenever you are accessing this video and adding your ideas to the 3 slides that are part of that slide deck. So you will need to have that open at some point. All right, so just to review, our goals of this course, this short introduction to green chemistry and sustainable science, are twofold. First of all, we are trying to empower teachers to make the transition from using traditional labs with their students in their classrooms to more sustainable labs that intentionally incorporate green chemistry practices. And secondly, we are working to really equip you with curriculum resources that really focus on the ideas of sustainability and integrate the green chemistry practices. We are also trying to provide strategies for implementation. How do you take a traditional lab and redesign it as a replacement lab that is safer for you and for kids? And finally, here at Beyond Benign, we are always trying to develop a professional learning community that we are all part of that is focused on sustainable science practices. So tonight specifically, or today specifically, we are going to experience and evaluate and investigate a phenomenon. We will be sharing ideas on that Google slide deck about how green chemistry practices could be integrated into K-12 classrooms. And finally, we're just going to start developing our small community within this class of green chemistry educators so that we can share resources, brainstorm ideas, inspire one another in our discussion posts, in our next video call, etc. So we're going to start off with the butterfly PT investigative phenomena. And I'm going to show you a video of this phenomena. It's hard to do this phenomena live on a video. It's difficult to see the colors that are going to happen in this phenomena. So I'm going to go ahead and use a video that one of our another teacher that's involved with Beyond Benign has put together. As you watch this video, I am going to have you make sure that the Google slide deck is open, and on the very first slide, I'm going to have you pull over some sticky notes and add some observations, things that you noticed as we work through the phenomena. What are some wonderings or questions that you have, and what do you think is going on? And you can approach this from either with a teacher hat on, so, as a teacher, what are you noticing? And what do you think? What do you wonder? Or you could go ahead and approach this particular phenomena wearing a student hat. So if you put yourself in the place of your students, what do you think your students might observe? What might they wonder and what might they think? right. So really quickly, uh, Butterfly PT is something that is easy to order off of Amazon. I have this package, which I've actually had for multiple years at this point. So a little bit goes a long way. And it's very inexpensive. So it's about $7 or $8 a package. So we are going to step away from the investigative phenomenon for a moment, talk a little bit about sustainable science practices and the green chemistry principles, and then we will come back and think about those in terms of the butterfly PT investigative phenomenon. So, sustainable science, like what is it? So sustainable science is really thinking about looking at science topics through three lenses: an environmental lens, a social lens, and an economic lens. And where those three lenses intersect is kind of the sweet spot of sustainable science. But how do we do that? Like, how do we provide an education for our students that really incorporates the practices of sustainable science to include this balance of environmental, social, and economic concerns? Green chemistry is, in my opinion, sort of the answer. So green chemistry allows us to look at science through environmental, social, and economic lenses. So green chemistry is the design of chemical products and processes that either reduce, eliminate, or both reduce and eliminate the use of hazardous substances. So we are intentionally benign by design. Now, this idea, or these practices of green chemistry, are happening in industry right now, and they are happening in and can happen in K-12 classrooms. And they of course, are also happening at the university level. So when you're thinking about green chemistry, we want to look at it through the lens of three criteria. We want it to be, whatever we're doing, we want it to be cost effective, we want it to be safe, and we want it to be high performing. So if we are going to create a replacement lab for a traditional lab, we need to first and foremost make sure it's safe. And when I say safe, I mean not just safe for kids. Of course, we want it safe for kids, but also safe for the adults that are in the room, including us. We want it to be cost effective. That makes it more accessible if it's cost effective. So we want to use materials and equipment that are not expensive and that are easy to acquire. And finally, performance is important. We want whatever this replacement lab is going to be, it needs to perform. It needs to help kids engage and see the ideas and concepts that we want them to engage and see. So if we've got something that's really safe, it's not using any kind of toxic substances, it's cost effective, but it doesn't show kids or doesn't help kids experience what we want them to experience, then it's not meeting all three criteria of green chemistry. If it performs really well and it's safe, that's great. But if it's really expensive, then that's not accessible either for everybody. So that doesn't meet the criteria of green chemistry. So we want to really make sure that when we're doing replacement labs, we're thinking about all three of these criteria. So let's go back and look at our investigative phenomena, the butterfly PT phenomena. As I imagine many of you already realized, this phenomena is a greener version of Le Chatelier's principal lab. So this is a beyond benign replacement lab. I will be including the link to the lab in the email that I share with you, including this link and all the other resources. The objective of this lab is to, of course, evaluate the effect of pH on the equilibrium system of butterfly PT. So if we go ahead and compare the Butterfly PT lab to a traditional lab. We're going to notice some things right away. So thinking about the traditional lab, you're using highly concentrated acid and bases. Oftentimes, the substances that are used in a traditional Le Chatelier's principal lab are on the toxicity level 4, which is bad. They can be carcinogenic. Oftentimes, there's lots of aquatic environmental hazards. So they're not good for people. And many times, these substances used in the traditional lab are not good for the environment and organisms in the environment. Butterfly PT lab, we have low concentrated acid and bases. In this case, the video showed using ammonia and vinegar. You can use other household substances too, other basic and acidic household substances too. It's very safe. We are talking about substances that have very low to zero toxicity values, and we generate very little waste. It's also really inquiry driven. Like I said a moment ago, the video showed using vinegar and ammonia, but you can have kids test other substances and make predictions about what they're going to see in terms of color changes or how they can shift the equilibrium, make predictions about how they can shift the equilibrium back and forth, and then go ahead and have them test those predictions. So when we think about this lab, using the 3 criteria, it's definitely cost effective. So we've got, some ammonia, some vinegar, and a $7 package of Butterfly PT that can be used for years. It definitely is safe. So our toxicity levels are very, very low. And finally, it performs. We can use this Butterfly PT lab to very easily have kids engage with this concept, and they can see it really, really well. And just on a side note, I think personally that the colors that you can get from Butterfly PT using different acids and bases, again, household substances, are quite beautiful. If we look at it through the lens of the 12 principles of green chemistry, this particular lab kind of highlights 5 of the principles. First of all, waste prevention. There's very, very little waste that is created in this replacement lab. We are designing safer chemicals. We're not using anything hazardous, and we're not creating anything hazardous. We're using renewable feedstocks, we're reducing derivatives, and overall, we're meeting principle 12, which is just safer chemistry in general for accident prevention. It's safe to do this replacement lab for kids, and it's safe for the adults in the space. So we're meeting lots of green chemistry principles, and we're meeting the 3 criteria for a good replacement lab. All right, so let's kind of back out a little bit. So why incorporate green chemistry in K-12 to begin with? Well, first of all, classroom safety. So when you're using replacement labs over traditional labs, one of the main reasons why we're doing that is to make sure our classroom is safe. Make sure it's safe for the kids again, and make sure it's safe for any adults in the space as well. The second reason that it's really awesome to integrate green chemistry into any K-12 classroom is it really allows for student exploration and invention. It's very easy to make many of the replacement labs that are out there for green chemistry, specifically the ones that Beyond Benign shares. It's easy they're very inquiry based. They're driven by exploration of students, they're driven by student questions. Because the materials and substances and equipment that are used in many of these replacement labs is inexpensive and easy to get, that just provides more equity of access to everybody. There are many, many connections that can be made between what's going on at the industry level and what's going on with green chemistry in the classroom. making connections to what's happening at industry level is a great way for kids to find relevance in what they're learning in our science classrooms. And finally, green chemistry is often really interesting to kids. Most kids are concerned about what's happening in the environment. Most kids want to know more about what they can do and how they can make a difference. And green chemistry provides so many opportunities for them to become more personally engaged in the choices that they're making. All right, so what I'd like us to do now is hop into that Google slide again, and I want you to think about sustainable practices in your classroom. And on slide number 2, I want you to think about, like, what are some of the sustainable practices that you already integrate into your classroom? These could be really small things, or these could be really intentional things that you've been working on the last few years. And then finally, on slide 3, what are some sustainable practices, just based on what you've learned so far in this class, that you would really like to try to implement in the upcoming academic year? So go ahead and add your ideas to those slides. Again, just a reminder, if you are the first person that pops into the Google slide, please plan on coming back later so you can see the ideas of your colleagues and or comment on those if you've got some other ideas, or if you've got some questions or some thoughts about what your colleagues are posting. So that's going to wrap it up for our first virtual meeting. Our second and last virtual meeting will be next week, which is the last week of the course. When you come for that virtual meeting, please be prepared to share the lab or activity you're going to be redesigning for Module 3. You do not need to have this finished by any means when you hop onto the video call next week, but I would like you to have kind of an idea of what you want, what traditional lab you would like to redesign, so that we can have some conversation about that. And then just a reminder for our asynchronous learning, continue to engage with those online group discussions. Again, we are a small class, so if you are the first person to hop into a discussion, please make sure that you check in with that discussion later on in the week and are responding to at least one of your colleagues. And if you're going in and there's already a few posts in there, please and you're replying, go ahead and spread the wealth a little bit with replies so everybody's getting some feedback. All right, please reach out to me if you have any questions or comments or concerns. And thanks for joining today. Thanks for engaging with that Google slide deck. And I will see everybody soon. Take care.